Hi there. So in this video I'm going to be showing how to tweak the performance of Cygwin to make it run a little bit better, because I have been finding performance for Cygwin is renowned to be not that great compared to Linux, but I've been finding it's very bad compared to other people on the Cygwin mailing list, even though my system is quicker. So this is going to be a live diagnosis of the issue, and I'll try a bunch of different things to see if I can improve the performance. I feel the best thing we can do in the first place is compare it to the native Linux fork speed. And Cygwin will be a lot slower, but at any rate, just to give you an idea of how much slower it is. So there's this Git repository which has a fork benchmark, like a really simple fork benchmark, which is in the URL here. I've also stuck it in the video description. So we're just going to run this. I can't remember whether this has a script. No, I just run make. Okay. Yeah, so it's really simple. So you just run fork benchmark and then stick a number for the number of forks you want it to do. So the method I'm going to be doing for this is I'm going to change one thing at a time. I'm going to do a clean boot of the virtual machine between each attempt, and I'm going to run the test 3 times and sort of take the average of those times, because there is a drop off after it's been run for a while, and I'll run 1,000 forks each time. So my Linux host isn't clean booted, but that doesn't seem to have this drop off problem, so run it 3 times. So you can see the runs are basically identical. They're all 0.23 seconds, so that's pretty quick. So extra notes. This is in case anyone's interested, this is a Ryzen 3600, and it has 32 gigs of RAM, of which 16 is given to the virtual machine. As you can see, I've got plenty of free memory, available 27 gigs, and CPU usage. I've closed most things to try and free up CPU time. But you can see my screen recorder is using a fair amount of CPU time, but there's not much that can be done about that. So that will skew the test slightly, just because I'm recording my screen. Other notes is that the Windows virtual machine I'm using is running in KVM, and it has 16 gigs of RAM allocated to it, and 6 cores of the, well, it's by thread, so 6 cores of the potential 12 that KVM sees, and I'm using VirtIO storage because it's quicker. Right, so let's get this started up. I will be doing this test with 64-bit Cygwin because 32-bit Cygwin has a variety of issues with it anyway and limitations, so I feel like the results from that are more likely to be flaky. Okay, so you can see all of the junk on my desktop, but despite that, this is mostly a clean installed version of Windows. I installed this 4 days ago, and then just sort of installed Cygwin and some other stuff I need for development. Firefox, because I hate Microsoft Edge and that kind of stuff. And Avira antivirus, which I've made exceptions for the Cygwin folders in Avira, so that shouldn't be causing me a problem, but I'll disable that too. We're going to do a variety of things. So first off, don't need to enter my SSH password for this. So first off, we're just going to run the same benchmark, clean boot, wasn't restored from Hibernate or anything. And we'll see what we get. So 3 runs, average of 3. So you can immediately see that, you know, this isn't taking 0.2 seconds. It's taking a lot longer than 0.2 seconds. Okay, that's probably one of the quickest ones I've gotten actually. Maybe just because it's a clean boot. But if the trend is the same as it has been in the past, you'll see that the next 2 runs get progressively slower. A little bit slower. only about a second slower this time. But I found if I run this like 20 times, it gets slower and slower and slower. So during long packaging builds, it ends up being a big problem, which is why I'm doing this, because it's taking a lot of extra time to do some things. There you go, so now it's suddenly 16 seconds. So if you take the average of those three, that's 11 plus 12 is 23, plus 16 is 39. So divide by 3 is 13 seconds, which is a lot slower than the 0.2 seconds I'm getting natively. If I ran it not in a virtual machine, it would still be slower than native Linux anyway, but this is a lot slower. So if I run this a fourth time now, just to kind of show a bit of evidence, you should see that it's even slower. Oh, okay, maybe that trend is gone after the reinstall, that's nice. Good. So, I don't believe I can keep this disabled after a reboot, but we'll see. I think it turns itself back on. Oops. I think it turns itself back on after you reboot Windows, so I might not quite be able to do that with a clean boot. But we'll see. I can always turn it off straight after boot up and then do it again, just to do a quick sanity check and make sure that the antivirus isn't messing it up, even though there's an exception. If the antivirus does turn out to be messing it up, I'll check the exceptions, but I still need it, so I'm going to do the rest of the steps anyway. Fortunately, this boots up pretty quickly. It's on NVMe storage, so it'll be pretty quick. I have to wait for it to finish booting up, and then we'll see what it says. I really hate all the, stuff like this. It's just all this kind of nonsense. Still initializing. All this nonsense that Windows just pre-installs by default now. It's quite irritating. Like you have Candy Crush and a bunch of other kind of just bloatware out of the box on Windows 10. So one of the things we'll be using is a debloat script. But we need to wait for the antivirus to load, which is surprisingly slow, actually. This does run a little slow because I don't have video acceleration under KVM, which is, well, a little annoying. Yeah, so it turns itself back on. We will turn it off for an hour because it's not going to take an hour. That's sort of as clean boot as we can be. Let's see if this is any different. Oh, I mean, it'll be slightly different because there's this variation anyway, but if it's hugely different, I will be surprised. But it's about the same. I'm going to say I'm expecting it to average around, 10 to 15 seconds. Which it looks like it is. We've also got Windows 10 Mail and blah 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 and all that stuff. It's just by default, and all of that stuff is quite annoying as well if you don't want to use it. So we'll be getting rid of that. Okay, so you take the average of those three. Just gonna, make sure I do this properly and use a calculator. So we've got 11.2, 13.2, 14.6. I'm not really counting anything lower than tenths of a second because I feel like that's getting into pedant territory. Yeah, 13. It's exactly the same. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run this debloat script, which is actually it's a PowerShell script. And it was rewritten for 2020 fairly recently. Okay, so what we need is to open PowerShell as administrator. By the way, this is all Windows 10 stuff. I don't know whether this will work on Windows 8.1, but seeing as this machine is Windows 10, I'm just going to use that. So I've put the link to the debloat script in the video description, or the page for the script, and on that page you get, if it's going to let me paste it, you get this command, which you run, which downloads and runs the script. So it presents you with this interface. So what I've done before, and what I'll do again, is just hit Essential Tweaks, and you can sort of see what it's doing. Creates a system restore point. It disables a bunch of stuff, including telemetry and advertising ID, which is good. And then it deletes a bunch of these default kind of bloatware Windows apps, which may also improve the performance a little bit. Doesn't take too long in my experience, but it depends on the speed of your system. But as you can see, it's getting rid of quite a lot of stuff, and if all of this is running in the background, which at least some of it is, then it should kind of speed things up quite a lot. Okay, so that's that done. The other thing I'm going to do is turn off Cortana. Actually, I'll turn off OneDrive as well, because it constantly gets in the way. That's another thing that's in the tray, so it's definitely running in the background. Because of the way this is made, you can sort of tell when it's done, because this whole thing just goes unresponsive until it's finished. Guess I should... oh no, it's quitting itself. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so OneDrive is gone. We'll also do background apps, which will stop so much stuff from running in the background, which is probably good. Okay, so we've done essential tweaks among these three, so yeah, that should help. Hopefully, we shall see. I'm not doing any of the security related stuff because I'd rather just leave it how it is. As it says here, please make sure to back up your data first. And there is a restore script as well. This is all courtesy of a YouTuber called Chris Titus Tech, who does a bunch of Windows related things. Apparently this doesn't want to close, that's helpful. It doesn't usually do that. Okay. Well, it popped up and said it finished. Oh, there we go, that's why. It's because I didn't click the button. Okay, so we've done that. We'll reboot again. Okay, so while we wait for it to boot the rest of the way up, usually all this stuff is actually gone in the start menu, so I guess it's changed slightly since the last time I ran it. But yeah, some of the fancy start menu stuff is disabled a little bit for extra performance, so that's always nice. Probably give it a minute for Vira to initialize. I don't think it's uptime that matters, I think it's the number of forks it's trying to do that matters more. That's the impression I'm getting from running this, given we just got 2 identical runs of 13 seconds. We have at least not got a OneDrive running in the background anymore, if nothing else, and that should maybe give us a slight edge over this, in this not particularly scientific benchmark. Let's just see if that's finished. Not quite. I guess if I try and open it like I did before, it might try and kind of kick it into action a bit. Or maybe the tray icon just doesn't update. Okay. Okay, it's done. Right, so we've got 13 seconds to beat. I'm expecting this to maybe make a little difference, but probably not a very big one. I also have a more realistic thing of package building, where I've timed how long it takes for me to bundle my GUI, DD Rescue GUI, which usually takes about 50 minutes for a particular stage of the process, which involves lots of forking. So it'll be interesting to see whether that's noticeably different. So we have, let's open the calculator, 10.3 and 11.4 and 14.9. Divide by 3. I know I'm just truncating the numbers rather than rounding them, but it will do. It's not very scientific anyway. I'm hoping to make a big improvement rather than a little one. So that's got us 12.2 seconds. Let's run it a fourth time and see if our time shoots up suddenly. Slightly down again. This one's slow, I think. Yeah, that's slower. See, this is what it normally does. It gets slower and slower. So that hasn't fixed the drop-off, whatever is causing that. Right. So next thing is change virtual memory settings. Control panel. There we go. This is probably the easier way of getting to it. It's taking me to a different one. Advanced system settings. Here we go. This one. So we have advanced virtual memory. So you don't want to do this if you're running on a on bare metal, but in a virtual machine I don't want a paging file because it's not going to offer any performance improvement. I wonder whether it's actually doing what I tell it to do here. I feel like it just ignored me because I was fairly sure I set this already. Oh, so I have to click set. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this just stops it from trying to use the disk as RAM, which will be slow and unnecessary in a virtual machine. So that might give us a decent performance boost just because it's not having to figure out where it's going to whether it's going to page things into RAM or not, onto disk or not. Not that it should be doing that anyway, but general performance tweak. I thought I'd already made that change, but clearly I didn't. I should note that since moving to KVM I have had better performance. I suspect that's mostly down to the VirtIO storage, probably. Let's see if that helps. I'm expecting it to not really make much of a difference because it shouldn't be paging anything anyway, but we are allocating and deallocating lots of memory, so maybe it will. I don't know. Okay, that's about the same, I think. Yep, that's looking pretty samey. But it's a good thing to do anyway, if you're in a virtual machine. I wouldn't recommend you do it if you're running it on bare metal. Okay, 13.2, which is within the margin of error. Right, so next thing. If I haven't already done this, Windows has some power management settings. So actually, yeah, we'll turn that off because it's annoying. Yeah, so we're on the balanced mode. Let's stick it on the performance mode and check the plan settings. Turn that off. Let's check the advanced power settings as well. So, I don't know if I can pick 0 here actually. Never. There we go. So never try and turn the hard drive off because that's not going to do anything anyway. Slideshow. Doesn't matter because I don't have one. Sleep. Wake timers. Just going to go through everything here. Power management does slow it down. I remember hearing about that. Cooling policy doesn't matter because it's a virtual machine. Never turn the display off. Prevent idling. Performance bias for video playback. Okay. So that's all of those settings. Now we'll reboot again. So we'll just give Avira a couple of minutes as usual. Just try and open the GUI to get it to load quicker. I guess it probably tries to do some kind of background loading thing. There we go. Same thing again. This might be a little bit quicker, depending on what exactly Windows does when you stick it on the balanced mode versus the high performance mode. I think that's a little bit quicker. 10 seconds. I'm not sure we've had 10 seconds before. Yeah, I think that's a little bit quicker. That might be fluky, but as I say, I've got the timings for package bundling to compare, so I can always do that. So, average of 3 again. So the third one is about the same as previous ones actually. But there's all this other stuff running on the running in the VM and running on the system anyway, so it's a little bit hard to sort of know that, well, these aren't all going to be exactly the same just because of that. So power management, that's 12.6 seconds overall, which is slightly slower than the debloating one, so we're probably still within the margin of error here, which is unfortunate. The quickest one we had was 12.2, which was after running the debloat script. So far I don't think any other stuff I've changed has made a significant difference. So 13 again. I haven't actually looked at Sig server and what it does, so I wonder whether it's running some fork cleanup or something, and that's why it has a drop off if you keep forking really quickly. So maybe it sort of ends up being more sluggish because it's trying to clean up everything as well, maybe. I don't know. I don't really know how it works. Just to see what happens with this last run. Not going to do another one after this. Just want to see whether it's dropping off a cliff, which it looks like it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, so next tweak is need to open control panel again. I'm sure there's a better way of getting to this option, but this is the way I know. Advanced settings. Okay, so there are also visual effects. So I'm going to do like a custom thing, because I do want, for example, smooth font, and I would like window contents while dragging shadows under windows, for example. Those things, I think, are kind of usability features, really. Let's quickly look at... No, there's not really anything performance related there. Okay. So we tweak that. You know the drill. We'll also turn off system restore in a minute and see if that helps. Again, don't do that if you're running on bare metal. If you're running in a VM, you can have snapshots and that kind of thing, so you're okay as long as you do that, or if you have a backup. I feel like that booted pretty quickly. Yeah, so this video is going to be a bit of a talking head video, except you don't even get the head because my webcam isn't working. Given I'm not doing anything graphical, I don't expect having changed those settings to make any meaningful difference. But if it does, it will be interesting. The problem is I don't know what the problem is here, so I'm just kind of... These are just a bunch of things that I know are a good idea to do. I just don't know whether they will fix the problem or not. I suspect the Sig server one will probably make a difference. Might not be a positive difference, but it should be a difference. So this is looking kind of within the margin of error. It's not suddenly like 5 seconds or 30 or something. Okay, so let's just sum those up again. 11.3 plus 12.3 plus 14.8 gives us average of 12.8, which is about the same again. Okay, it's interesting actually. We are mostly consistently getting a slightly better result than before I did anything, but not by much. So Next up, system restore. I can't quite remember. I think it might actually be here. Yep, configure, disable, or moan. Yep. Can I delete restore points from here? Yep. We'll delete all the restore points as well. I guess there weren't any because it did that so quickly. Right. Reboot again. Because the other reason I'm doing this is today and yesterday I was developing a change and a re-release to the Windows bundle for DD Rescue GUI. The sheer amount of time it was taking to bundle it and test it and then bundle it again and test it again and so on made that take an extortionate amount of time, which I could have probably saved hours if it was quicker. So it's sort of worth doing. It's probably worth doing for some of you as well. If any of you watching this use Cygwin for any heavy lifting or compiling or anything like that, because configure scripts, you know, they're all bash scripts, so there's tons of forking and hence tons of slowness. Okay, so we're back at the same point again. This time system restore is off. Again, I'm going to expect this to be about the same. $10, that's quicker actually. Might be fluky. If nothing makes any difference in this video, this may be a part 1, because I'm not super happy with the performance I'm getting here. It's a lot better than it was in VirtualBox, but it's still pretty abysmal. Compared to other people on the Cygwin mailing list who also ran this benchmark. Okay, so that's 10.7 plus 11.9 plus 14.1. Divide by 3, 12.2 seconds, which is exactly the same as we got after debloating Windows, so that's tied best, but again it's within the margin of error. Okay, so the environment variable thing didn't look like it was going to make any difference. So now we can edit Cig server, which actually isn't here, which is interesting. It's etsy cigserver.conf is not here. So I guess I will make one. Okay. Yeah, so there are Cig server threads used for cleanup tasks. And it says, according to this email, I'll put a link in the video description, an email on the public email on the mailing list, the Cygwin mailing list. The default is 2 cleanup threads, and the maximum is 16. And you set it with kern.srv.request threads 16. I'll just put a note in here for me. Seeing as this is a 6-core 12-thread CPU, I would not be surprised if increasing this does make a big difference. Right, so then we've got... it's cleanup, not request. Cleanup, I was thinking request didn't make that much sense for this. So the next thing we've got in this email is the number of Cig server threads used to serve application requests. And the default here is apparently 10, but the maximum is 310. So we shall try that. If this makes a huge difference to performance, I may include these tweaks in my DD Rescue GUI bundle for Windows as well, which kind of bundles a mini Cygwin install. That's like just enough to get everything to work. So we've also got process cache size, which I suspect may also be causing us a problem, because it's the number of concurrent processes, apparently, which Cig server can handle concurrently. The default is 62. And the maximum is apparently 310. I suspect the cleanup threat is probably the one that's hitting us the most, because that's 2. The others are higher numbers, but that's a really small number of threads, considering the speed of the CPU, the number of threads the CPU has. If you had a dual core, I suspect these wouldn't make so much of a difference. Okay, I don't know what I need to do to make that activate, so I'm just going to reboot the way I have been, figuring that, you know, whatever it needs, rebooting should be enough. Interestingly, we've lost a shutdown animation since I tweaked the performance settings. I didn't know that was a thing. So, hedge your bets now as to whether you think this is going to make an improvement, or make it worse, or do nothing. I am going to tentatively say that it will give me a little boost. I hope. I really hope it gives me a little boost, because this is the last thing I have on my list right now. If it does absolutely nothing, it might of course be because I've done it wrong. That is entirely possible. It's not looking good for an improvement. It's looking identical. I should maybe note, actually, Windows Defender is known to interfere with Cygwin quite a lot, so if your Cygwin install is way slower than this, it might be because of that, because it does stuff like address space layout randomization, which Cygwin does not like very much. It interferes quite a lot, so I've heard at least. So we got 10.9 plus 11.9 plus 13.9. Divide that by 3, and we have 12.2, which is exactly the same. So that hasn't improved. But if I look at my previous email, the thread, so someone running natively on a Core i5 8250U quad core 1.6 gigahertz. It's a lot slower than my processor. They get 39, 42, 49, 61, which is a lot less than we're getting here. Then I believe I've got my results here, but another person's results on an i7 2600K, 3.4 gigahertz, 4 cores, 8 threads. They have 16, 16, and 14 and 14 with Windows Defender on and then off. 32-bit Cygwin is known to be slower. Let's see if there is another set of results. Okay, so another different set of results on... what system is this? This is an AMD A10 9700 with 10 compute cores, 4 cores, 6 graphics at 3.5 gigahertz. So it's probably a laptop CPU. That's 33, 34, 34, 33. Unfortunately, I don't have my old times. These times look relatively good compared to those. So perhaps using KVM and reinstalling has made enough of a difference. What I should also note is that if I quickly dump the contents of my Cygwin variable, environment variable, I'm using WinSimlinks:_LNK, which I need for bundling, and I did notice that once I did that, fork did slow down. Like, processes executed noticeably slower. So, I suspect that might have something to do with it, and the proc retry means it retries 3 times if fork fails. So I suspect that may have something to do with it as well. I will be right back. I'm just going to quickly check and see if I can find my old results. Okay, so before migration I did actually take some performance measures with this tool, and I think they were in the 20-second plus range, but if memory serves, but I lost those unfortunately. What I do have is for the WXWidgets 3.0 package, which I am the maintainer of, my build time compared to somebody else's. So my build time was compile 2 hours, install 40 minutes, or 120 on 32-bit Cygwin. And somebody else's time was compile 41 minutes and install 4 minutes or 7 on 32-bit. So that's a huge difference. And I did also note that when it was printing out the installation successful message that WX Widgets does, I could see it printing out the individual lines with echo, which, like, I could see it going, you know, like printing like rather than instant. So that was fairly ridiculous. Made a point of checking. Oh yeah, so this guy's on a 4-core 8-thread Haswell. Yeah, that machine is slower than mine, but the package time was way quicker. But I have got a good benchmark there of, you know, I know how long that package takes to build, or took to build for me, versus how long it should take. So I can rebuild, and we'll have a good idea of whether this is improved performance, any of these changes, or just being in KVM as opposed to VirtualBox. Final note for the day is going to be that this is Windows 10 20H2, which is the latest build as of January 2021. Might not be the same on other builds. I think I had the same problems on 1809 and 2004, but you know, your mileage may vary. I don't know exactly what Microsoft changed under the hood between those builds. So, yeah. I'm just going to quickly look up to see if there are any obvious commonly applied Windows performance tweaks. Just looking at Microsoft's page here, make sure you have the latest updates and drivers. Only open the apps you need, got nothing open. Use Ready Boost, we don't need that. Page file size stuff. Low disk space, I'm pretty sure we've got tons of disk space, 30 gigs free. Adjust the appearance and performance of Windows, we already did that. Pause OneDrive, OneDrive isn't installed anymore. Disable unnecessary startup programs, I believe msconfig is the tool. Let's see what is enabled. Let's see if we've got loads of junk services running. I can't believe that we could have, because, you know, I don't really have that much installed, but I suppose it is possible. I mean, I am sure there are some of these that could probably be turned off. That might improve performance, but there shouldn't be loads of non-standard ones here, because this is basically a clean install. Got QEMU stuff for the shared clipboard, I guess. Maybe something to do with the video driver as well. It's just all built-in Windows stuff. It just kind of amazes me how many of these there are, but yeah. Startup items are in Task Manager now. Let's take a look. That's disabled. Security. That's enabled. I don't know what that is. That's disabled. Avira is enabled. Cortana's disabled. Okay. Let's quickly. I'm going to look at those term services to disable for performance. I can of course put them on manual instead of disabled, so that if they do need to start up they actually can. So apparently the way to do this is to open, it's been a while since I've done this, services.msc, which is probably, yeah, it's that. Okay, so we can see all of the services. I'm going to sort so we can see all the automatic ones. So I'm going to leave Avira stuff alone, because I feel like that would be a bit of a mess. So if I don't use Bluetooth or wireless headphones, which I don't in this machine, I can disable AVCTP if it's here, which it does not look like it is. Oh, here we go. Yeah, of course it's not alphabetical. It's manual triggered. If I do properties, I can disable. So AVCTP, BitLocker I am not using. BitLocker drive encryption service is also manual. See, all these ones that are manual, I'm not really thinking it's going to do much. disabling these, but you never know. Bluetooth support service can be disabled. Computer browser disables discovery of systems on the local network. I may need that for file sharing in KVM. I haven't set that up yet, so I'm going to leave that. Connected user experiences and telemetry is already disabled. I think the tweaker did that. Diagnostic policy service. Diagnostic service host. Not actually showing up. Here we go. It says enables problem detection, troubleshooting and resolution for Windows components. Diagnostics will no longer function. This is not something that has ever worked for me. Windows is troubleshooters, with the one exception being the activation troubleshooter one time, when for some reason it didn't reactivate. Diagnostic tracking service. I suspect that one is already off. Diagnostic policy service, device management. I think we may have gone all the way around. Yep. Okay. Distributed link tracking client. I wish there was a quicker way of doing this. There we go. It says maintains links between NTFS files within a computer or across computers if you're not connected to a network. Now, I don't think I'm going to need that because I'm probably not going to have NTFS symlinks. I suspect that's what it maintains. And the file system on the other end isn't going to be NTFS, so it won't work anyway, actually. Downloaded Maps Manager, which is basically for Bing Maps, apparently. Because apparently Windows needs a service for that. Which seems kind of hilarious. So that's automatic. And currently not running. File History Service, if you never use Windows Backup or System Restore. Which I don't. IP helper if you don't use IPv6. It's a bit dicey. Infrared monitor. I'm kind of surprised that's still supported. Oh, well maybe it's not because it's not coming up. That must be an old one. Internet connection sharing, which is manual. Won't need that. Used that many years ago, but I don't need it now. Net log on, which you don't need if you're not in a domain. Which is manual, so turning it off probably won't do anything, but anyway. What else have we got? Program Compatibility Assistance Service. I am not going to be running any old programs. That is actually running as well. But I'm not going to be running any old programs, so we can turn that off. Print spooler. I will not be using a printer. So that can be stopped and disabled. I guess turning all of these things off might free up just general system resources. Some CPU cycles. Every little helps if you're doing a build that takes 3 hours, I think. Parental Controls, I do not need. That's manual. Remote registry. For remote registry access, presumably. That's already off anyway. At least, I hope it is. It's already disabled, good. I was going to say that sounds like a horrible thing. Secondary logon. enables starting processes under alternate credentials. I don't need that because I'm an administrator, I guess. If any of these things break, then I can update the video description and or blog post if I write a blog post about this, and say what broke from what, because I have a list here of exactly what I changed. Right, so that's secondary logon, TCP/IP NetBIOS helper. If you are not part of a work group, I may need that for file sharing again. Touch keyboard and handwriting panel. Yeah, I don't need that. Handwriting panel and ink service. I don't have a touch device for this. Apparently I cannot stop it, but I can still probably disable it. Apparently it's just running, but I guess I can disable it anyway and maybe it just won't start on the next boot. Windows Error Reporting Service, which is manual. That can be disabled. Windows Image Acquisition, which is for scanners. Where is this? Windows Image Acquisition for scanners. I'm amazed how many of these there are. It's been a while since I've even looked at this at all. Windows Camera Frame Server. I don't understand why there needs to be a service for all of these things. I don't think that's actually coming up. No. Okay. Windows Insider Service is apparently somewhere, which is only needed if you are part of the Windows Insider program, which is their beta. Here we go. It's their beta thing. Beta Windows builds. Alpha and beta test builds. And there's also Windows Search, which I admit I do sometimes use, but if it speeds things up, I'm happy to forego it. It does do indexing, so I suspect it probably does trash performance if it's doing anything like that while anything else is running. So that's some sort of general ones. So let's just verify that search indexing was turned off, yeah. And I guess it will just stay off, which is fine. So actually Windows Search will probably still sort of work for system stuff. Okay, let's restart again. Yep, so search still sort of works. That's useful. Fork, benchmark. Maybe a little difference, but I'm not really expecting anything much. We'll see. I think the big test is going to be doing a package build again to see how long it takes. 11.3, 12.2. It's kind of looking average-ish. As you can see, it's like around, 100 times slower than native. So what have we got here? We have, let's sum these up. We have 11.3 plus 12.2 plus 14.4. 37.9 divided by 3 is 12.6, which is kind of slap bang in the middle of our results. So, yeah, no huge change there. Right, so nothing I have done today has made a huge difference, unfortunately. But I'm thinking the terrible performance I was seeing during package builds may have been a result of VirtualBox rather than anything else, which honestly wouldn't surprise me because of all the trouble I've had with VirtualBox. I'm guessing maybe it's better on Windows hosts or something, or maybe not on Linux Mint or Ubuntu. Perhaps it's better on Red Hat. But yeah, it used to be good, but I've found lately I had this huge kernel memory leak it caused as well, and it just got really sluggish and crashy, and it has improved a bit since then. Like those terrible symptoms have gone away, but this KVM still seems noticeably quicker, apart from the lack of 3D acceleration. Right, so I think that's it for this video. Unfortunately, I can't verify whether I fixed it yet, but once this video ends, I will. I'm going to start that build, and then I'll be able to tack on just after this whether the build time is better or not, and in the blog post. So see you next time. Probably one of the first videos I've done that has Windows in it, but next time we will be back to Linux-related stuff, probably. So yeah, see you next time. Hope you enjoyed. Stay safe, everyone. Okay, so this is a little extra. I just noticed something, which is Windows, for some reason, thinks I'm on an EPYC processor. I don't know why. But it also only sees 2 cores. So I thought I'd have a quick look as to, why, because that's weird. And it's the topology that KVM has chosen, even though I told it was Windows, is one that Windows doesn't recognise, because it doesn't recognise more than 2 CPUs, unless it's seeing it as 2 single-core CPUs. So I suspect, highly suspect, that if I change that, it's basically only using 2 cores. If I change it to mirror the host CPU, then my performance is suddenly going to shoot up. It's interesting that it's still quicker than it was in VirtualBox set like this, because VirtualBox definitely had the CPU configuration set right. So even thinking it's a dual core, it's still quicker. Right, so if I give it all 12, and I guess I can just do it this way, huh? 6 cores with 12 threads. Oh, okay, that's not how it works then, huh? Right, so that's now quickly killed that. Right, so it's not quite copying, because as soon as I start it, then it does something different. So it still thinks it's an EPYC. I don't know why, but that's what it's doing. Oh, I bet this is going to get my virtual machine deactivated, isn't it? Let's see what it says now. Yep, now it sees it. Okay. Just quickly check my activation status. This is running noticeably quicker, actually. I bet it is. Oh, okay. Haven't lost it. So, let's just quickly initialize a Vira. It's ironic. I feel that the fix after doing all this complicated stuff is a simple configuration change. Assuming, of course, that this is any quicker, which it may well not be. It isn't, is it? It's the same. I guess this is maybe more about single core performance then. Still be better during multitasking like this though. It's 11.6, 13.5, plus, this one is slower, isn't it? That seems a lot slower. 17.17, so 17.1 divided by 3 gets us 14. So that is actually slower than any previous run, but that's probably a fluke. Right, so clearly that hasn't made a big difference either, which is actually a surprise. But anyway, see you next time.